Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. This is our GPU update, March 2023. We've got huge cuts on the high-end GPUs right now, but where are those mid-range GPUs? When can we expect the 4070, the 7800 XT, and all those other associated GPUs to finally launch? Of course, we'll also check in on the used market prices right now, as well as the best price to performance GPUs in all the categories that you should be buying this month. Remember, if you get value out of the video, give it a like because it makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe, click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. And with that, let's jump into it. Before that, this video is sponsored by Deepcool with their new all-white version of the LT all-in-one liquid CPU cooler with a unique infinity mirror pump head. If you are looking for a clean and distinctive aesthetic that's easy to install, then you should check out the Deepcool LT AIO in 240 or 360mm versions. The updated pump design increases both power and efficiency. Customize the pump head ARGB and enjoy a simple and secure installation. Take your PC build to the next level with the Deepcool white LT AIO cooler using the link below. Let's jump into current GPU pricing for March 2023. Let's start on the AMD side and look at that. We are seeing some big discounts continuing to happen for the higher end Radeon GPUs, both this current generation, the RX 7000 generation, as well as for like the 6900, 6800 XT. First of all, the RX 7900 XTX finally added its MSRP for the board partner card. So $999, you can get an actual board partner card. Look at that. You can get the Power Color Hellhound. This is actually a really nice one. We have the 7900 XT version of the Power Color Hellhound one. Looks super nice, by the way. Or the ASRock one. There's a number of these, and they're actually including a game bundle right now. The Last of Us. The Last of Us super popular, so you get a free copy of the original version of The Last of Us if you buy one of these GPUs right now. But it is nice to see $999 the MSRP for the board partner cards, not just the reference models. And then of course we've got the massive price cut for the RX 7900 XT. Look at that, down to $799, down almost 10%. It had already seen price cuts from an $899 MSRP in February, but it's even lower in March. I was surprised it went down to $799. You can see there's actually a number of models. There's an XFX Speedster model, ASRock model, and if you look at some of these other models, they're right around that $799. I would not be surprised to see these continue to drop to $799 and quite a bit below. I still think that $749 is the appropriate price for that card. We'll see what AMD decides to do. I do see in here that there are going to be some promo codes. So watch out for promo codes, especially if you were considering like an RTX 4070 Ti and you thought the 7900 XT was just a little bit beyond you. This might be more interesting. And then we've got a big price cut on the 6900 and 6950 XT down to $649. Now that's for the 6900 XT model. That's over at Amazon right now. That's XFX Speedster model, $649. Pretty compelling. That being said, obviously with 4070, 4060 Ti, on the horizon, as well as the 7800 XT, you kind of asking yourself, is it worth it to jump to that price point? Over at Newegg, a little bit more expensive, but they only have the 6950 XT, which is slightly faster, for about $670 after the $10 promo code. And it's nice to see the 6800 XT come down to $559. That's another $40 price reduction. It continues to approach its Black Friday pricing right now. That's the ASRock Phantom Gaming model. For like 10 bucks more, you can get the Power Color Red Dragon, which is a super nice GPU, but it's nice to see these come back in stock. They completely sold out over the holiday shopping period, and even in January, got down to that $515 price at Black Friday, and it seems like it's approaching that pretty rapidly. Finally, rounding out for the higher end cards, we've got effectively no change for the RX 6800, $484, kind of just $5 difference. And then for the rest of the AMD GPUs, we're talking the 6700, 6600 XT, 6600, 6750 XT, etc. Effectively no price change whatsoever. Yeah, the 6600 came down another $5. I do expect that 6600 card eventually to get back towards $200, probably even lower as it comes back into stock. Remember, completely sold out over the holidays to the point where the only listings left were the more expensive ones. And I think now we're seeing that volume come back in the market. So if you are out there with about $200 to spend and you want to hold out, that might be a good idea. Before we jump into NVIDIA GPU pricing, look at this. Intel is absolutely taking a machete to GPU prices and just hacking away at them. A750 now that had MSRP'd at $289 is down to $229. And I think that's where that card probably should have always been. The A770 down 16% to $269. Let's take a look at these cards. Yes, right here, $269 for the A770. Very competitive with the 6650 XT. And Intel's throwing a ton. They get the 2 games and 5 creative app offer. They say it's $490 value. We all know that's a bunch of BS, but it has some value, obviously you get a couple of games with it. So they are trying to compete right now with AMD to get rid of these ARC GPUs with the driver updates. And we've talked about this in the last update. These cards are very performative, and I have updated the best GPU price to performance spreadsheet at the end of the video with new performance data for Intel. So we'll see how that affects their price to performance standings at 1080p, 1440p, and higher. And of course, the ARC A750, which many outlets found to have almost the same performance as the A770, down to 229. That is super insane. And honestly, right now, as long as you don't mind tiny, tiny little bugs, Intel has done a great job fixing their drivers. I actually thought it was a total disaster at launch, but they have completely come around. These are now relatively compelling GPU options. If you want 1440p capable GPUs for $230, that is pretty insane. Let's jump over to NVIDIA GPU prices for March 2023, and as we can see, the RTX 4090 continues to float down towards its actual MSRP of $1599. Now you say, Jason, it's down 3% to $1649, so big whoop. Well, remember, 3% of $1,699 is a lot more than like 4%, for instance, of the RTX 3050, $279 to $269. So that actually equates to a lot more value in terms of dollars. That's $50 off. And as we can see, we've got a number of different models. We've got the PNY model here, $649. Now, if you want one of the kind of name brand models, ASUS, MSI, etc., you will end up paying more like $1,700. But if you don't mind trying to save a little bit of money by buying a Zotac card or by buying a PNY card, which is frankly a fine GPU, actually looks really nice, $1,649 right now over at Amazon. Remember, links to everything are down in the video description if you want to check out current pricing and availability in your region. Then we've got the RTX 4080, which literally just a second ago, the 1189 model went out of stock, so it's $1199. It's a $10 difference, not that big a deal, about down 2%. They are available now at MSRP. I know the 4080 is not a card that gets anybody excited right now. It feels like you're overpaying for a 4070 Ti or a 7900 XTX, and you're not quite getting a 4090, so why spend the extra money? But they do have a number. Look how many they have at MSRP. It's pretty insane. Even this with a $30 off, that's $1199. I suspect that's why we saw $1,189 until just a couple minutes ago. That GPU just sold out. I suspect what's going on is NVIDIA is going to try, and at least some of their board partners might try and kind of test the waters on some price cuts. And then for the 4070 Ti, down to $799, back down to its MSRP. Quite a few cards available at MSRP right now. We can see right here, $799. They got a couple of Ventus models, and you can actually get it even a little cheaper if you combo it with an MSI PSU. I don't typically take combo deals into account. It feels like wrong because you have to buy something else in order to get the thing, so you actually spend more money, but you might get something like an MSI PSU, which I really think are great. Highly rated on the PSU Cultist tier list at the A tier, $15 off. 3090, 3080s effectively continue to be out of stock. I probably will remove these listings. Let me know down in the comments if it's time to just take them off the spreadsheet. They seem like they are gone. 3070s, $5 difference here or there. The 3060 Ti, same thing, $409. Those are Zotac cards, by the way. Those are not name brand cards that everybody goes gaga for. If you want one of those, it's more like $460. Then 3060 is effectively unchanged all the way down until we get to the GTX 1660 Ti, where we got a $20 discount, which is nice on the lower end. It's nice to see those cards come down a little bit. Those cards really should be more like $150 in my estimation, but we'll check that out when we look at the best price to performance GPUs later in the video. There is other GPU news that I do want to go through, but let's start off where else? Where in the heck are the new GPUs, both from AMD and NVIDIA? Yes, we do expect the RTX 4070 in April. Of course, there were leaks about this a couple weeks ago. Supposedly this embargo to board partners saying that the launch date is going to be April of 2023. And we're expecting the RTX 4070, possibly the 4060 Ti, not the 4060, but the 4070 and 4060 Ti to launch, at least be announced around April 2023, hopefully on store shelves as well. And this is what so many gamers are waiting for, is like, when are the new GPUs going to launch? I don't necessarily want to spend my, $500 or $600 on an older generation GPU when I know it's going to be surpassed in just a couple of months. Who wants to do that? Nobody, right? But AMD and NVIDIA are holding out on people because they have huge amounts of stock of the older generation GPUs that they can't sell through right now. So I decided let's take a look at the older generation launches. How long did it take us to get a 60 series card for the 10 series? How long did it take us to get a 60 series card for the 20 series? What about the 30 series? Even with the silicon shortages, you know, we all remember that. Then take a look at the 40 series. Where are we now? How long has it been? And when can we possibly expect these? So let's start off with the 10 series. The GTX 1080 launched May 27th, 2016. How long did it take us to get a GTX 1070 after that? Only 14 days. That's right, 2 weeks to hit store shelves. Then how many days after the launch of the GTX 1080 did it take to get the 1060? Only 53 days to get the GTX 1060, which was the mid-range GPU of that generation. Now let's take a look at the 20 series. We got the 2080 September 20th, 2018. How long did it take us to get the 2070? Well, it was almost double the amount of time, but it's still less than a month. Then after the launch of the 2080, how long did it take us to get to the 2060? It took us quite a bit longer, actually, almost double the amount of time, actually a little bit more than double, 117 days. Still, it's less than 4 months from the launch of the 2080 to getting the actual mid-range RTX 2060. Now, the 30 series obviously impacted by scalpers, by GPU miners, by the silicon shortage, due to the lockdowns and everything else that was going on. We all remember 2020 was a pretty insane year, right? But the 3080 launched September 17th, 2020. Now, 7 days later, we got the 3090. This was kind of a weird launch, right? Within 42 days, again, about double the amount of time that we got the 2070, we got the 3070. That being said, the 3080, 3090, and 3070 were all announced at the same time. That was very helpful. Now, NVIDIA kind of threw us a curveball here, the RTX 3060 Ti, and it was 76 days since the launch of the 3080. We didn't get the 3060 for 161 days. Again, another increase of about 50%. Now remember, this is silicon shortage, all kinds of other external problems. We had shipping problems, production problems, material shortages, everything crazy going on out there. They still managed to get the RTX 3060 out in about 5.5 months. Now let's take a look at the 40 series as compared to the 30 series. The 4090 launched first this time. That was their flagship launch. 35 days later, we got the 4080, and we were supposed to get the 4080 12 gigabyte, but obviously NVIDIA decided that was a huge PR nightmare, and they pulled that card and rebranded it as the 4070 Ti, which we did get 85 days after the launch of the 4090. Now the RTX 4070 is rumored to be launching sometime around April 20th, 23rd, 2023. That would be 193 days from the launch of the flagship to the 4070, the 70 series card, which is pretty insane, right? By this time, we already had the 3060, easily had the other ones as well. That's not even the 4060 Ti. Possibly we're going to get that launched at the same time. It would be 193 days if these cards were all launched at the same time, including the 4060. People are not assuming that the 4060 is coming out. They think it's the 4070, possibly the 4060 Ti as well. Again, let's go back in time. What did it take us? It took us 53 days in the 10 series, 117 days in the 20 series. So you can see NVIDIA's huge delays right now on mid-range graphics cards. But what about new AMD GPUs? Well, we don't have the history on the AMD side. They have not been competitive at the high end for a long time until recently. So we don't have that launch history to go through, but we do have some bad news, potentially. Now, this is a rumor. It's from a Chinese website called My New Drivers, AMD RX 7800, 7700, 7600. They're basically saying that they are going to launch around a festival in China that takes place over the summertime. That's right, in June. This to me seems totally bonkers. I don't know why AMD would do this. This seems like a perfect opportunity for them to grab a lot of market share. So it is possible that, you know, we know the 7900 XTX didn't have the level of performance that was claimed by AMD when it launched. Now the drivers have cleaned a lot of that up, including the power usage, and has increased FPS a little bit on it. It's possible that they just need more time for driver refinements. I don't know. If AMD is doing this as a business decision and it's not related to performance, totally out to lunch in my opinion, but we'll just have to wait and see. And remember, of course, these are rumors. It is possible AMD could even change their mind and we'll get the 7800, 7700 even sooner. Of course, there is some good news this month. You may not need a new GPU whatsoever. AMD is set to introduce FSR at the Game Development Conference March 23rd. Now listen, AMD previously claimed that FSR 3 would double up to 2 times more FPS than FSR 2. I love how they may always make the up to like little little tiny text like that. And then it's 2 times more FPS. So NVIDIA does the same thing. Everybody does the same thing. Even if they get like 20 or 30 or 50% more FPS on average than FSR2, that would be absolutely huge, because FSR2, to me, the quality is right there with DLSS. I can't tell the difference. If you can tell the difference, let me know down in the comments. And I think this is super exciting in a way that frame generation was not exciting for NVIDIA, because that actually introduces latency, because that waits until the next frame in order to insert a precursor frame in between it. So you're actually introducing latency, and that doesn't exactly help your gaming experience. But this would be exciting, because this should not introduce that level of latency. I'm saying should in quotation marks. We obviously have to wait for it to be tested and check it out, but potentially super exciting development, especially for those of us kicking around relatively decent GPUs and thinking about upgrading, but not really sure if we want to plunk down the huge chunk of change that's being charged right now for GPUs. Not a lot of action in the used market right now. Yes, we have some price fluctuation. The RX 5500, yet up 23%, but they're basically sold out. There's very few listings of these left. We will go over, of course, the best price to performance GPUs in just a bit, but the 5600 XT down a little bit, 5700 XT essentially holding its price, up 6%. RX 580 remains $89, pretty insane value. I am seeing a lot less RX 570s, and that being said, for $10 more, the 580 just makes more sense. Looking at the previous generation, the 10 and 20 series for NVIDIA, yeah, not a lot of changes here. We do see the Pascal cards, of course, coming down quite a bit, as well as the 1650 Super, the 1660 continue to decline. A little bit of price fluctuation on the 1660 Ti and 1660 Super. Those are just really good value cards, and I think that we've seen a lot of those listings sell through. 2060 remains the same, and then it's just kind of a little bit of a mix between the Super cards, which gone up a little bit, but like the 2070 and 2080 Ti down just a hair. Jumping over to the last generation of RTX 3000 series cards, as well as the RX 6000 series, we can see just generally these cards continue to fall. 3060 up a couple of percent, 3060 Ti up a little bit. I think that has a lot to do with the new price. Every time the new price of the RTX 3060 Ti goes up, but I do believe miners are beginning to really sell off those 3080 Ti's, 3080s, 3070s. You can see the prices continue to come down 7% for the 3080 Ti. Also, the introduction of the 4070 Ti at $799 has greatly impacted. On the AMD side, 6900 XT, 6950 XT, they're coming down. That being said, not great value. $600 for a 6950 XT versus buying one new for like 50 or 60 bucks more. Obviously that's a pretty slam dunk for most people. Let's jump into the best GPU March 2023 price to performance. Now we're looking at new and used GPUs, and we're looking at 1080p, 1440p, 4K, 60 FPS, and 4K high FPS. How do we do this? If you're not familiar with it, we take all these graphics cards that we basically monitor their pricing on, both new and used. We take their performance versus an RX 570, and then we take their price, either new or used. Now we prefer new unless there's a 30% discount or better, used, and then we get a price to performance for that, and we divide them out in their various categories. Of course, there's a link to this spreadsheet down in the video description. These are all US-based pricing. If you want to put your own pricing in here, if you want to change some things up, do your own analysis, feel free to check it out down in the video description. Jumping into the best graphics card under $200 for March 2023, obviously for gaming. And look at that. If you have less than $100 to spend, the obvious choice is the RX 580, Radeon RX 580 used. Now you can get one new for about $149. So I don't know why you would. $89 is pretty cheap, and that's a pretty hefty discount. And if you have less than $100 to spend, like every 10 or 20 bucks, I know is a huge deal. So that's the way I would go. Really no price difference between the 4 and 8 gigabyte model. So just grab the 8 gigabyte model and don't even think about it. If you're looking for something NVIDIA about the same price, GTX 1070, $129. For $20 more, you can get like a GTX 1660 Super, 1660 Ti with the same level of performance, and it's a newer card than the 1070. Also, better driver support, probably longer driver support, so consider that as well. But the best one for me, if you have $150 to $200 to spend right now, and you're not willing to go any more over $200 to a brand new card, is the RX 5700 XT, possibly the 5600 XT if you can't quite stretch up to $185. Look at that price to performance, pretty amazing. That is a 1440p GPU. Jumping over the best high FPS 1080p gaming card, obviously a lot of these are also 1440p GPUs GPUs as well. We already talked about the GTX 1070, the RX 5600 XT, 5700 XT, super strong if you're able to buy a used GPU, willing and able. If you absolutely have to have something new, look at that. Intel Arc A750 has edged out the RX 6650 XT, which used to be one of the only new cards that would appear on this chart, at $229 with just slightly less performance than the 6650 XT. If you want to spend just a little bit more and kind of go AMD, and if you're maybe afraid of whatever Intel little bugs are left, you can certainly do that. Good job, Intel. You finally made it on this chart. You probably should have started here about 6 or 8 months ago and not try to overcharge for these GPUs, but they did make it on, and honestly, that's pretty surprising. Jumping over to the best 1440p GPU, March 2023. Yeah, we've already talked about the 5700 XT, got $185. That just makes so much sense to me. And if you have $40 more, the Arc A750 makes a lot of sense too. Slightly more performance than the 5700 XT, brand new card with a warranty and everything. If you have a little bit more money, the A770 6650 XT, good values. Now, this is not going to get you like 100 plus FPS in all titles. So if you want that, then you're really looking at like a used RTX 3070 right now for $370 on eBay. That is an insane deal if you're willing to buy a used GPU. If you're looking for something new at that higher performance level, 6700 XT, 6750 XT at about $360. Crazy value. You can barely get a 3060 on the NVIDIA side for that, a 3060, and the 6700 XT just completely nukes the 3060 into the ground. It's not even close, and there's no NVIDIA like ray tracing or any features that you really want to use on the 3060 anyway, so I just don't know why anyone doesn't buy a 6700 XT. If you want to go up from there, use 3080s. Pretty good value right now, very competitive with the RX 6800 as well. For, you know, about $40 more, I probably would pick up that 3080 used if I didn't mind buying used. If I had to buy new, then the 6800 would make the most sense. Jumping over the best 4K 60 FPS GPU, you can also think of this as like the best 1440p super high FPS GPU as well. And I know this is a problematic part of the market because we're waiting for so many new GPUs to launch here. It feels like we're just waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting. Well, meanwhile, if you don't want to wait, let's set that aside. We'll talk about that and should you buy now or should you wait. If you're looking for this and you don't want to wait, the 3070, 3080 use great values on the NVIDIA side. 6800, 6800 XT, also very good values on the AMD side, given what's currently on the market, if we just ignore that things might be coming out. Then we get to maybe a more problematic part of the market, 6950 XT, 6900 XT, because this is the price points we expect those new GPUs to target. Yeah, I might stay away from those right now. Then we look at new GPUs in this generation. You got the 7900 XT, the 4070 Ti. Those are really much higher FPS 4K cards though, and now you're selling out $800. For the best 4K GPU, March 2023, obviously 80 plus FPS, super high FPS. These are the best of the best of the best in terms of performance at ultra settings. Let's start at the bottom here because I think that there's a couple of cards that just make sense if you have like all the monies. And the first one is obviously the RTX 4090. If you want the best of the best of the best, yeah, this part of the market is completely set. It's nice to see the price continue to come down. That's great. 4080, I don't think makes sense for anybody because 7900 XTX will outperform the 4090 in quite a few titles that are really important to people like Call of Duty and things of that nature. 4080 just gets stomped by the 7900 XT for $200 less. So I don't know who the 4080 is really for, because if you can afford $1,200, what, you can't find another couple $100 to get yourself a 4090? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. 4080 totally overpriced. 7900 XTX does make some sense. As we go down though, the 7900 XT coming down to $799 makes things a lot more interesting. It's got 16 gigs of VRAM. You're not going to have to worry like you do with the 4070 Ti that maybe that 12 gigs of VRAM isn't going to be enough in a couple of years when, you know, HD texture packs, especially at 4K, they get bigger and bigger. So that is a big selling point for the 7900 XT, and it does outperform the 4070 Ti, which is nice in rasterization performance, obviously not in ray tracing right now. The rest of this stuff I would probably avoid, including the 6950 XT. Yeah, the new cards are coming. Not sure why we'd shell out, you know, $650, $700 just to get kind of stomped by something that's coming out in 5 or 6 months. Okay, let's play everyone's favorite game. Should you buy now or should you wait? Well, Honestly, with everything that's going on in the GPU market right now, I understand a lot of people are very, very confused if you want to get a new graphics card, especially in the mid-range. You're waiting for the 4070 launch, you're waiting for AMD's response to it to launch. You've got about $500 or $600, you're just not sure what to do. At the budget level, I think you're green light all the way. There's not going to be any new GPUs for at least 6 to 8 months, maybe even longer, especially at the low end. You're especially not going to see any from NVIDIA probably. Maybe the 7600 comes out over the summer, maybe not. Either way, I think if you bought something like an RX 6650 XT or an Intel Arc A750, oh my goodness, I think you'd be just fine. And if you want to do super budget builds, that's great too. At the high end, obviously, everything that you want is on the market right now. You just need to make a decision about what you're getting, what your budget is, and what your needs are, and go ahead and pull the trigger and just do it. Those GPUs probably not going to get any cheaper at the super high end. And really, for you middle folks out there, I think it's just big yellow light. You're going to wait. You're going to wait. You're going to wait. What are we waiting for, Jason? We're waiting for April. We're waiting to see what NVIDIA does. We're waiting to see what AMD does in response. And honestly, if they don't announce anything, I'm probably going to give you the green light to go ahead and build. So that's primarily where folks are at right now. I know there's that big hole in the middle of the GPU market that so many of you are kind of just stuck in right now. Remember, if you got value out of the video, give it a like because it makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. Speaking of cool content, do you know we do this exact thing for CPUs every month as well? Check out our CPU analysis right here to find the best CPU in March 2023. And we'll catch you on the next one.